This is Duke University.
Global trade and environmental justice.
Human rights issues are still.
The term Ubuntu.
The Alien and Sedition Acts
is making inferential discovery.
The importance of an archive.
The John Hope Franklin Center.
I'm Dirk Philipsen. I'm a historian at Virginia State University, currently at the Franklin Humanities Institute at Duke University, where I have the great fortune of having a fellowship, a year-long fellowship that allows me to pursue my own research, which is about how we measure success in the American economy. It turns out that the way we measure success, particularly economic success, is what I would consider to be deeply flawed. Imagine for a minute an obese diabetic smoker who crashes his SUV into a school bus while texting about an impending derivatives trade. What you have here in this example is what by today's standards is America's economic hero. Somebody who requires a lot of goods and services in order to pursue his or her life. Somebody who needs to buy and purchase a lot of goods and services and therefore adds to what is called in America the GDP, the gross domestic product, and which is a measure not just for economic wealth, but is also a measure for social well-being. Many of you will probably have heard on the radio or seen in the newspaper that our well-being is measured as, for instance, per capita GDP. The standard of living in America traditionally is compared to the standard of living in other countries and other continents as per capita GDP, and ours is usually higher, so therefore we feel like our standard of living is the highest in the world. Now, what is the problem with this? The problem is that it is a measure that is what I call indiscriminate. It does not differentiate between good and bad. It does not tell us anything about where we ought to be going and where we are going. Examples for this are that it does not tell us whether we are selling art or pornography, toys or weapons. It does not tell us whether we are moving in the direction of building an economy that is sustainable, one that allows future generations to have a comparable standard of living, or whether we are actually in the process of wrecking the planet. So for instance, again, the fresh water that is flowing down the creek is not measured and does not add to our well-being by this standard. But the water that I drink in the plastic bottle, because the water that comes out of the faucet no longer is clean enough, adds to, presumably, our well-being in the GDP. The tree that is in the forest does not add to our GDP. The tree that is cut and turned into lumber does add to GDP. So those are just a few of literally millions of examples one could think of. And so what I'm doing and what I'm interested in as a historian, as a person who is concerned about the state of the environment, and above all else as a father of 4 children, is whether or not we are literally in the process of wrecking the planet in our pursuit of indiscriminate growth as measured by GDP, or whether we are in fact beginning to build an economy and a society that is sustainable. And by sustainable I simply mean that future generations, not just the next, but several future generations will have the ability to live a decent life, have a good standard of living. And so I think this is one of the topics that are more important than virtually anything else that I can think of for us to grapple with, because I think at this point in time, the only thing we can demonstrate for sure is that the path we are on is not sustainable, is not viable, and that we need to find a different path, and we need to do it for our children.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.